Hi, welcome to Planning with a Plan. Today I'm going to go over Maranta. See here, first one I'm going to start with is the first Maranta that I have received. I'm going to actually tell you a particular plant. So for me, I've noticed that with this particular plant, with watering, I will water this plant whenever I feel like the soil is dry. I tend to keep it moist at all times, and I tend to find that this plant likes that. I don't have any issues. Now for this one, because this is the Maranta kerchoveana, which is also the green Maranta plant. This particular plant, when it comes to water, I found out will easily take this sink water compared to other Maranta that I've tried. So this particular, let's see, for example, my water is total dissolved solvents of over 200. And this plant will still grow as long as it's got its water and humidity, but my leaves will tend to be very crisp at the end. Will still grow out, still grow new growth with no problem. As far as this plant goes, for that moisture, I also found that the plant prefers to have high humidity. So when you're thinking about temperature wise, the plant is coming from South America, so it does like a lot of humidity, likes to be in warm climate. And I would assume that since it's going to be mostly on the ground in a rainforest environment, it's going to primarily have more of a moisture content with it and less light. Now, for my experience with this plant is that it actually enjoys to have a lot of humidity. It will grow a lot more constant. It'll have a lot more new growth continuously when I have high humidity. The temperature it prefers to be at, so far it'll work really well in, is 70 degrees. As far as having direct light, I've understood that this plant will receive spotting. It cannot handle direct light. Now, a lit up room, this particular Maranta loves a room to be lit up. So if there is no actual sunlight hitting this plant will close its leaves up straight up, and it will stay in that position, and there is no new growth. And at the end of the day, I have found that I've tried to do a temporary light with one of the grow lights. Basically, I've tried to grow light the blue one. I've tried the grow light with the red, yellow, blue multi lights. Just supposed to help you grow the plants. This plant still will not react to the artificial light. It prefers sunlight, so I have to put it in a space where it is able to receive some form of some type of light coming from the sun into my space in order for it to be happy. Let's see, what else can I tell you about the plants when it comes to food? This plant will take my organic plant food that you would normally get from the store, and it will be fine. But currently, due to the fact that I have another Maranta plant, I actually have been giving this plant warm soil. So I think I'm saying that wrong. Warm compost. So I've been giving this plant some of the warm compost. It likes it. I've been giving it more of the rainwater or distilled and bottled water. And as you look at some of these leaves, you can see that their tips are not as crispy looking as this one right here. And then I even have some baby plants because I've done some cuttings, and those particular plants don't have any crispiness on there, and that's due to me choosing to decide to go more with bottled water and rainwater, distilled water, just because I realized that that does the plant a lot more better health wise. And in my opinion, I don't think the plant likes these crispy leaves because some of it has died off since I've transitioned to water, and it seems to be doing better. But then I also know when it comes down to light, I've put it in a space where it does get light and not a lot of light, assuming that maybe you're still in a darker area. This plant is hugely affected, even if it does get a little bit, like if it has a low light, it will might open up its leaves, but it will gradually die off because it'll turn yellow, and the leaves that are not getting enough light will turn yellow and start dying. Just so anyone who's worried, knowing I have been determining that it prefers to be more in a 75-degree weather. If you are putting it in some room or in a space where it's not at a high temperature, you want to make sure there's plenty of light, humidity in the space so that the plant will thrive off of that type of environment. Let's see here. I actually did cuttings on this plant, and I thought it was so cool because in the process of me doing cuttings, very little plantlings coming up out of the soil. So this is a very thriving plant in my opinion, because being that I did not get all the cuttings to be able to reroot so that I can stick it back in here, this plant was actually able to continue its growth process without it. It seemed like once it got lost its cuttings, it decided to grow more of itself. And then I also have here the red Maranta, and the red Maranta is looking really, really gorgeous and beautiful right now. It's actually interesting with this one because I got this one in the winter, and it took me a while because I thought it was going to be similar to the green one. And this one, which is called Maranta leuconeura, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong as well. This particular plant actually can survive a little bit more different. I don't know if it was because it might have been grown in a lab in a more controlled area compared to my green one. I believe my green one has been growing in a natural environment. Maybe not, but this plant does not seem okay. This one, the soil can be moistened, it can be wet. I will wet this one, it's perfectly fine. As far as humidity, it loves to be in humidity. It'll increase its growth in high humidity. As far as light goes though, this plant can survive in a artificial light with a blue grow light. Alone of the blue grow light, it was doing fine. It was growing perfectly well. There was no leaves dying. Everything was growing just as I would want it to be. And this one in particular, I don't really put it near a lot of natural light. It grows without a lot of natural light compared to my green Maranta. The one thing is though, it will not take any type of water. I was giving it the sink water. I was giving it my general plant food, and this plant was dying left and right. It was not able to handle any like draft from my air conditioning heating coming onto it as well. I had to eventually gradually stop everything because I was not sure what was going on with it. So I gradually stopped giving it plant food. I gradually stopped giving it sink water once I really came to that consideration. And I've been giving it bottled water, distilled water, rainwater, and it's been growing perfectly fine. I give it worm compost, and it's happy with rainwater, worm compost. I feel like it's the nutrients that this plant ideally prefers, which is so different compared to the green Maranta, but it's still so beautiful because of the yellowness, the redness. Let's see here if I can find one. The redness that you would normally get underneath the leaves. What I did learn about this plant is that if you do expose it to too much light, even this artificial light, the red backing that you would normally have on the back of the leaf, which would primarily be on the older leaves, is not going to be as obvious or noticeable. You have to give it light, but it seems to be more of on the low light spectrum, not really on the highlight, versus my green Maranta prefers to be on a medium and more of a highlight area, but more light. This one's a little bit different. This one just grows a lot better in artificial light and not a whole lot of light. As far as this plant goes, let's see here. I have found that this particular plant, I feel like both Marantas do this, there is this tendency to grow its leaves out. If I can get a good video of it. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come on here, is it grows its leaf out in a pattern and it comes down, and then when I look at it, see, this one has its leaves up, but compared to the rest of the plant, these leaves tend to stay up all the time. And when I did some research on it, I found that this particular plant, what happens is it grows out of its space up, comes back down to hit more ground area in a natural environment, so that it can root down in this bottom area where it's a little bit more bent. And then this is where I'm going to do a cutting in here so that I can create more of this plant, because I find that it seems to be it's not functioning the same as the rest of the plant. So that's why I decided to cut this off and start creating another one. What's interesting is, though, once I cut this plant piece off, it starts really working to grow other parts of itself, because as I was able to get these lovely cuttings that are here to root up very well, so I can put them in here to grow. Another one in here. As I got those to have good roots to grow, which they were growing perfectly well while they grew their roots. So here's one right here. This plant went ahead and grew itself out even more, just like the other Maranta. And it's looking very beautiful. So then, if you are wondering, this is more of a older leaf compared to a newer leaf, which looks like this. And then what I love to look at is the baby leaves. The baby leaves has very little to no color. Reminds me more of the green Maranta. I almost feel like with the red Maranta, it's more of an advanced form of the green one, because it starts out looking like the green one, but it ends up having these more distinguished reddish type of lines, which you can't see unfortunately in the camera, but in the back it usually has like a bit of a red lining, like the vein structure in the vein area of this leaf. Let's see if I can get it to show where this would normally be really reddish. You can see that coloration in there. So therefore, we'll do a cutting on this one, and I really wanted to do this video so I could show you the cutting area of this plant, because I'm definitely going to do a cutting within this stem as well, right in this area, and then that'll take this off right here, and then I'm going to do another cutting right here in this area to help this plant grow out. It just seems to stimulate the plant to grow more, especially with it going to be in the winter, because right now it's still a bit more of a wintry weather, even though we're about to be in spring.